Hey there, We Can't Wrestle podcast listeners. If you haven't noticed, we have switched our server to Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So go ahead, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Highly recommended by me and everybody else here at the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
The We Can't Wrestle podcast. The King listens to it. WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. And you better listen to it too. My friend Nate and the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
You're listening to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Now it's time for our host, Nate Matson.
Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 146 of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. The Maxon brothers here with you. Nate Maxon, your host, along with my brother Aaron, of course.
What's up?
And this week we are continuing our Dream Rosters series. As you heard on the last episode, Aaron did his Dream Modern roster. I'm going to break mine out this week, and we're going to see how it shakes up and what Aaron thinks about that. So before we do that, though, I do have to say we are within a week when this show airs of our appearance at the Heroes and Legends Wrestling event in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Saturday, October 2nd. If you live in the Fort Wayne area and you don't have a ticket yet, get tickets. The general admission tickets are only like $25, and Aaron can attest the convention center that this show is in. There's not a bad seat in the house.
Nope, and it's a fun show. I've never seen a bad, like, how do I say it? Like the vendors are always professional, and I've never seen like a wrestling show that they put on after the trade show that I was just like, this wasn't entertaining at all.
Right.
Like, it's always been fun, and the legend guys are on there and everything like that, so it's a good time.
Go to heroesandlegendswrestling.com for the lineup. I know there have been some changes. The promoter had issues with a couple of the vendors being carnies. So go check out. I don't have the updated lineup at this point, but go check it out at the website. And, of course, buy your tickets on Ticketmaster. If you live anywhere near Fort Wayne, Indiana, it's definitely a show that's worth the drive. You get a whole day's worth of pro wrestling fun. You know, there's always vendors with action figures. There's autographs. There's everything going on. And then the wrestling show itself, I believe, starts around 7 p.m. So.
And I'm going to have a cooler in the trunk, so if you want to come out and have a beer with me.
Tailgate with the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
At least one of us.
I got to drive home, folks.
Yeah, I ain't driving.
So, anyway, because we were originally, those of you that have listened to our trivia shows, my wife, Kendall, was going to go. And then she kind of thought about, those of you that know when I talk say that she tolerates my fandom, but she is not a fan. And I think she debated the fact of honestly spending from like 9 or 10.
From 9 show with Aaron and Nate.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was her kind of deal. She'll probably just stay home and watch TV or something. But anyway, actually, I think the in-laws are coming that weekend, so she can hang out with her mom and dad.
All right. And a couple days after that, Nate turns 52, everybody.
Horse shit! Yes, my birthday on 10/4 coming up as well. So, lots of stuff going on the first week of October here for the We Can't Wrestle podcast. So, unless there's anything else, you want to get into this deal?
We can. I don't want to get too much into it, because if I get too much into it, we'll end up talking about like a 5-hour show. But we did lose Norm Macdonald.
Yes.
I know this is a wrestling podcast, but Nate, if you know it, I was gonna say, if you know anything about me, you obviously pretty much know everything about me. Who do I tell you all the time is the funniest dude to ever fucking live?
That cat, Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald. I never met him, but I miss him. And it was almost like when Bobby Heenan died. Like, when I woke up, like, my phone will give me, like, news alerts and stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
When I woke up and I saw Bobby Heenan's name, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, Bobby Heenan's name hasn't been in the media for years, because why would it be? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, ah, shit. And then, like, I haven't heard from Norm. Like, why would I hear from Norm Macdonald? I hadn't heard about Norm Macdonald for a long time. And then I woke up and it said Norm Macdonald. And I was like, oh, fuck. Norm Macdonald died. And turned out he had cancer. He didn't even tell his family.
Apparently he was dealing with for about a decade. And, you know, I wouldn't have had any idea. I mean, he had that show. If you haven't watched his show that was on Netflix.
Well, I just watched before they bought it, before Netflix bought it and put it out there. And I kind of feel bad about, I shouldn't say feel bad because they're fucking multi-billionaires, but I kind of feel bad for dogging on Netflix for not picking it up again. He probably didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So, but that's a great, if you don't, I mean, you can get on YouTube and watch all the Norm Macdonald live shit. But it's kind of like a swan song for him, going out talking to people that he wants to talk to, making jokes.
And I got to tell you, one of the biggest surprises of that show for me, one of the funniest episodes of that show was the one he did with Judge Judy.
Yeah,
like that one took me by surprise. I was like, all right, this is fun. Norm Macdonald and Judge Judy.
And I think it's because Norm was funny. Because, well, fun. I'm not saying funny. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, the funny thing about Norm Macdonald was he could do mean humor, but you never thought he was mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he could say, like, just the worst fucking joke in the world.
Like that shit about Carrot Top.
Well, yeah. But yeah, that's him being cheeky. But, like when they would do the joke rounds and shit on Norm Live, they would just have these terrible jokes, just horrible. But you're like, it's a Norm, so it's like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
You're not mad. You know what I mean?
His demeanor was very disarming. Yeah.
Yes, and he's the greatest story joke teller in the history of story joke tellers.
Now, let me ask you something, because, I mean, and you may know for sure, because you may have read more about him or what, because I mean I really do dig Norm Macdonald, thought he was funny as shit, but obviously Aaron's a bigger fan than I am. Not that I'm not a fan, but you know what I'm getting at. But I want to ask you a question, if you know or if you think, because I always thought Norm Macdonald's inspiration was David Letterman.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was, but there's no way that he didn't have some sort of he borrowed a lot. I shouldn't say borrowed. You can tell that he was a fan of David Letterman, and then him and he was on Letterman all the fucking time. He was the last stand-up comedian on Letterman. And there's no way that he didn't pattern himself off of it. And this is one that I didn't think about it until, I don't know what made me think about it, and I never heard, because he didn't do a lot of interviews about like, oh, these are the people that I thought were like
right.
my inspirations or anything like that. In that aspect, he was kind of closed off from it. But I also, when I watch him, it's like, man, there's no way that he didn't, and I don't know why anybody wouldn't, but there's no way this guy didn't like Fred Willard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he's like a combination of David Letterman and Fred Willard. If that makes sense.
It does. Fred Willard, of course, like the honky tonk man. But anyway, that's we can't wrestle humor there.
Yeah, and I was gonna put it on a wrestling connection. Not that Norm has a connection with wrestling, but when Norm Macdonald died, I was like, man. And then we can get into your roster. I was like, man, this is just like when Bobby Eaton died.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, all the professional wrestlers were like, this guy was the best.
Yeah.
Like, the best of all of us was this guy. And every single comedian has been like, you know what? Norm was the fucking best.
Norm was the best. Yeah.
Just the best. The best tribute I've heard of him so far was, there's very few podcasts that I listen to other than the We Can't Wrestle podcast family. I listen to every Jim Cornette. I listen to every Bill Burr, because I love Bill Burr. Monday Morning Podcast is fantastic. It's just an hour of just him just yelling in his attic. It's fantastic. But then the other one I listen to is Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, because I like Conan O'Brien. And because he's an interviewer kind of like Letterman, where he doesn't take over the show from the people that he's interviewing. He just makes them better. Like, he's even said that before. Like, when I'm interviewing somebody, even if what they're saying might not be interesting, I'll as interesting as what it might be, I'll pay closer attention to it. Or, oh, the joke didn't hit as good as this person thought it was, I'll laugh a little harder at it. You know what I mean? That's for like people like Fallon. Like, I don't think Jimmy Fallon's unfunny, but Jimmy Fallon overtakes interviews.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Leno did the same thing, I thought.
Me too.
But Conan doesn't, but that's beside the point. So I'm just saying, if you want to hear Conan sit down and just talk to somebody and make jokes and have a good time, it's a good podcast to listen to. But he didn't have like an interview per se. He had his producer, which his name went out of my head, and Andy Richter on there for an hour, and they just talked about Norm and said that Norm, like, the producer said he'd sit there for an hour and talk to Norm about, what are you going to talk about? And then he'd go out there and it wouldn't be anything that they said they were going to talk about. and Conan said the minute Norm would come out, he'd just start laughing, because he's like, this is going to be a fucking train wreck.
It doesn't matter. It's going to be good, though.
Yeah. So,
you know what you made me think of? I don't want to, I wanted to say it while I was thinking about it. You were talking about the way that late night guys interview people. And we talked about Letterman. He's the guy, Letterman is the guy that you could tell when he didn't like somebody he was interviewing.
Yeah.
Because Letterman would like no-sell people and then be funnier than them if he didn't like them.
They just call them out.
Yeah.
Call them out on their shit. It's coming back on. Like, it went away, but people were trying to do the fucking cancel culture shit to him for a little bit about some of his interviews and shit. And people were like, fucking leave David Letterman alone. Like, that was like one guy where they were like, fucking leave that guy alone. He's all right.
Leave him alone. Yeah.
It's fine. Like I said it before, he, in my opinion, is, and I thought about it more, and then, like I said, then we can get into your roster, because we'll probably lose our audience. He has a Netflix show too, where he interviews people, and it's just, he interviews one person. Have you watched any of that?
Yes.
Like, he interviewed like Chappelle and
Barack
Kim
Obama.
Kardashian, Like, he's the only time I've ever watched anybody interview Kim Kardashian where I was actually interested in what the fuck Kim Kardashian had to say. You know what I mean? But anyway, David Letterman is, in my opinion, our generation's Dick Cavett.
Yeah, easily.
He can interview anybody. If he needs to be funny, he can be funny. If he needs to interview somebody serious, he's not going to be like, okay, imagine Jimmy Fallon trying to interview fucking, I don't know, like some fucking I know he's interviewed Obama, but that's different. Obama, I don't want to get into politics, but Obama was a personable guy and funny. You know what I mean? But like, imagine Jimmy Fallon trying to interview you're more on politics than I am. Some politician about some serious shit. It's not going to work. You know, he's going to end up doing like some kind of BG impersonation. Being
that's what I was about to say, because he's a fucking goof.
Be like, hey, Kamala Harris, let's do the wheel of celebrity impersonations. You know?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay,
right.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but he's a one-trick pony. Letterman can fucking interview anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to that, and I think the reason is because people could relate to him, and he was a nice, pretty much decent guy. And I think Norm was the same way. Like Norm Macdonald on that show you were talking about. Okay, I'm going to interview Judge Judy, and I'm going to have he had Michael Keaton on there, right?
Yep.
Jane Fonda. It's just like all these different people, and you could all tell they just fucking enjoyed themselves because Norm was the fucking man. And
yes,
what I watched the thing because I never watched David Spade had a show on Comedy Central. He might still have it, I don't know, but I watched it, and like I said, I'll stop. Sorry, he had David Spade had on his show. Dennis Miller, Kevin Nealon, and Norm Macdonald. And it's like, oh god damn, this is gonna be great. And Miller, they're all talking, and they're talking about like what like Spade's like, hey, what's your favorite weekend update joke or this, that, or the other thing. And Miller was like, the ball's on this guy, and he points at Norm, he said, the NBC executive, biggest executive in the whole company, said, do not make any more O.J. Simpson jokes, because this guy was like friends with O.J. Simpson. So straight up told Norm, do not do any more O.J. jokes. The next Saturday Night Live went out there, did absolutely nothing but OJ jokes. Every joke was a fucking OJ joke, and he got fired for it. So then they started playing like Miller was like, so they told you to do no OJ jokes, and then he didn't do any, or then he did all of them, you know. And then they set him up to do more because they played like OJ's Twitter, and they come back and they're like, so what do you think about OJ now? And he starts saying, oh, well, you know, he was found not guilty, and maybe I should have thought before I spoke. And he's in the top 10 all-time rushing yards. And he goes, and I might be in the all-time top 10 rushing to judgment. And Dennis Miller pops because he's like, you're such a badass. He's like, they told you don't do any OJ jokes. And then I come on here and say, hey, give us some OJ jokes. And he didn't give us any of them. He like apologized to the guy.
Rest in peace, Norm Macdonald.
It's not as funny. It's not as funny as me saying it. But yeah, Norm was great. The world's 10 times less funny now,
yes,
in my opinion. And go watch Dirty Work.
Absolutely.
The hell's that guy? One of the best lines in movie history. Who the hell's that guy? All these dead hookers. All these trunks have dead hookers in them. It's fantastic. But go ahead. Sorry.
Such a good movie. All right, here we go. We are going to talk about. I have got together my modern day roster, dream roster. Can pick from anybody on the planet currently in professional wrestling. I noticed that when I was doing this, it looks like my roster is mostly North American centric. No New Japan people in here. Sorry, everybody. But anyway.
Is Ric Flair your goodwill ambassador?
He's not allowed to fly. He's got to drive. He's got to drive everywhere. That's the caveat.
You start out like that's the Ric Flair.
Well, he's got
me Dreamer.
to harken back to the discussion from earlier, Flair's not. He's the Goodwill ambassador. He's not allowed to fly. He only has to drive. That's the only dick caveat that Flair has for being the Goodwill ambassador.
You stop and get gas. Keep it in your pants.
So I'll start with my crew that's not the wrestlers. I have picked as my announce team. Now, here we go. For the TV show, the weekly TV show, which is only going to be a 2-hour, once a week TV show. There ain't going to be 18 fucking hours of wrestling from my product. 2 hours once a week. My commentating team is, I'm going to have, and I still love him when he's fully energized and into the product. Jim Ross is going to be my play-by-play man. Okay. And my color man, because I dig him as a color guy, is going to be Wade Barrett. And then for pay-per-views, I am going to have a 3-man booth because I want to get this guy in because I love him. Pat McAfee is going to be on my pay-per-views with JR and Wade Barrett. I'm a big fan of Pat McAfee on the booth.
Yeah, I can dig it.
My interviewer, and I don't know if you'll dig this one or not, but I really like her as an interviewer, is Kayla Braxton.
I don't know. Is that little blonde girl on Raw?
No, that is the girl from SmackDown.
Oh. I don't know if I know her, so I can't say whether or not I don't know her or not.
Have you watched SmackDown recently?
Yeah, but
okay, so she's the one that she's the one that Paul Heyman has a little gimmick with, where he's like, "Would you just leave me alone?"
I got it. She's a little short girl.
Yeah. My ring announcer is Greg Hamilton. He's going to have to get pants that fit, but Greg Hamilton's going to be my ring announcer. He's always wearing high waters.
Body.
And my booker,
it's like he's got an Anthony Jeselnik body and Patton Oswald's head. It's like a blow pop.
For my booker, I have chosen, and there's a reason for it. I enjoy his booking, the way that he books the promotion that he books, and he learned under the learning tree of Jim Cornette. And my booker is Delirious. I know that Delirious is going to book my show the way I want my show presented.
And he's also a proven track record of somebody that doesn't feel like he needs to put himself on the fucking show.
Right.
Like I'll do house shows, or every once in a while I might be on TV and I'll fucking put somebody over or whatever, but he doesn't.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He generally,
or anything.
If he is on TV, he loses. He's there to put the talent over if he's on TV. So, all right, there's my non-wrestling crew. Do you want my heels, my baby faces, or my tag teams first?
Let's keep with the formula because I think it works the best. Because let's go heels, then the faces, and then your tag teams.
All right. The first guy, I am going to use him as a heel. He was on your roster too. I think you need this guy in your locker room, in a modern locker room. He's a great veteran. Huh?
We needs him. He said, I think we needs this guy.
We needs this guy. He's got feet.
He's got feet.
But he's going to be a good influence for the younger talent. He's a very talented guy himself. He can go out there and have a great match, put people over, or be a monster heel if you need him to be. But I am using it as a heel, and it is Samoa Joe.
All right. Now let me ask you this. Are you, and if you're not, that's fine, but are you going like, are you going to do like I did, like when you get to your 4 or 3 or whatever, these are my top guys?
Let me look at the list.
And that's fine if you're not.
Yeah, pretty much. The 4 and 4, they're my top 8. Yeah.
So kind of leave Joe down a little bit in case you need to flip him around or whatever.
Yep. He can always come up and down. The next guy has a world of potential. And he's probably going to be chasing, because I'm going to have a world champion, an intercontinental champion, and tag team champions. He's probably going to be one of the guys chasing my intercontinental champion or feuding with him at some point. But you can't deny the talent of LA Knight. That guy's the future. I mean, if you could strap a rocket to him, you know.
And I have said it over and over and over again. He was the best thing in Impact when he was there. He was the best thing on NWA when I shouldn't say he was the best thing. He was like, other than Nick Aldis, which you're not going to get much better than Nick Aldis. He was right there underneath Aldis with the NWA, and he's somebody that he's. This is going to sound funny, but he's almost like a Ricky Starks, that he benefited from COVID because the NWA just stopped.
Yeah,
when COVID happened, and I think the same thing happened with LA Knight was, well, the NWA, I don't know if this shit's going to get brought back up, so I need to go somewhere else. So not a lot of wrestlers can say they benefited from COVID, but LA Knight can say he did. My concern is that he's going to, and not on your roster, but my concern with him right now is that he's going to get him being as talented as he is going to be a detriment to him in the fucking WWE, because they're just going to use him to keep people over.
Mm-hmm. He'll fall into Dolph Ziggler's role.
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't happen, but I can see it happening. Mm-hmm. But he can fucking talk like nobody's business. He can work a crowd. Right now he's a heel, but if you wanted him to be a face, he could be a face. Mm-hmm. And he fucking looks like $1 million, and he can fucking work. Like, why wouldn't you want that guy? He
is definitely going to be a heel on my roster, a flashy heel, cocky heel. And I have some baby faces that it's going to be fun to watch him get his ass kicked. Honestly, I mean, you know, and that's not saying he's going to get buried, but a heel in that ilk, when the time comes, gets his fucking ass beat. But he comes out the next week. He's like, I didn't get my ass beat.
Yeah,
I didn't get my ass beat. I don't know what you're talking about. Moving on. The next guy that I'll put on my roster, I know that a lot of people, I don't know. I don't really, what do I want to say? Well, not a lot of people. A lot of the wrestling fans that liken themselves to be elitists like to dog on this guy, and I don't know why. And Aaron knows I've been a fan of him forever, and I think he still has a lot to offer. Maybe going in a different direction, but still a lot to offer because he's super talented, and it's Bray Wyatt. And I know there's a lot of people that shit on the Fiend thing and all that, and you know, the Fiend deal to me, it did get silly at times. Yes, it's WWE. But you can't ever say that Wyndham Rotunda did not give 1,000% to everything they handed him, whether it was good or bad.
Yeah, and he's a guy that is the opposite of what I was saying about LA Knight, is his character got hurt by COVID because his character was this character that when they were like, oh, we're going to do these cinematic fucking matches, his character was the one character on their roster that worked with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they did that one with Cena, and that one with Cena, I've gone on record of saying is the only fucking cinematic match I've ever seen that I enjoyed. And that was the one that they were like, oh, we're going to do more of these.
And then they did the Swamp Thing match and the fucking
match, and they set him on fire. And it's like, they literally did everything. I want to say, like, they did every possible thing you could do to that character, and just WWE ruined that character.
Yes,
in my opinion. And from everything I heard, supposedly he didn't like it, and that's part of the reason they let him go, because they said he was bitching all the time and everything. It's like, why don't you just fucking set me on fire in the middle of the ring? But
whatever. And then the next week I'm back. Yeah. And it's stupid. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't do that to Bray Wyatt. I would use him to his best ability. and I would definitely use him. To be honest, I'd hit the reset button on him. I don't know if we're booking our quote unquote dream rosters, if we're getting all these guys right now, or if we're just imagining. But I would definitely reset him back to the original Wyatt family version of his character, because that was the best version of his character.
Yeah.
And, you know, I may find him some cronies. I may find him some cult members or something. But definitely going to go with Bray Wyatt on my roster. The next guy I think is young. I don't think he's young. I think he's young. I don't think he's young. I think as a young talent, he has a lot of potential. He has a great look. He is, I know we use this expression on the show a lot, but he's a puppy with big paws. But I think once he grows into them, he's going to be a star. And I used to make fun of his name at first until I got to watch him more. It's my old buddy Wardlow. I used to call him Where's Wardlow, kind of mock him a little bit. I fucking dig Wardlow. I think Wardlow's cool, and I think he's got a lot of potential. I don't know yet about mic skills and stuff. They haven't really let him do a lot of that because he's with MJF, and obviously he's overshadowed. But I dig the dude, and I think he'd be a great young guy to have on my roster to build up.
And if he's not good, you don't need him to be.
Right? He can be what he is.
You know what you could do with him? If he can't talk, guess what you could do?
What's that?
During non-pay-per-view programs, Pat McAfee is.
Shit, yeah. Definitely. Wardlow and Pat McAfee. I can work with that.
I can be your assistant booker.
You and Delirious.
Yeah.
Get you guys an email chain going. But yeah, I think Wardlow would be good to have on the roster. Like I said, I think he's got, and this guy's not on my roster, but I'll just elaborate. I kind of look at Brian Cage the same way. Whereas I think Brian Cage and Wardlow would actually benefit from going to WWE. Because I think they're both a couple of guys Vince McMahon would look at, and you know how he is.
Yeah. It's like, I gotta go in the restroom and take care of something, pal. Look at that guy.
I got a ward load here.
Yeah, look at him.
The next guy that I put on my roster, he is a heel, and it's kind of hard. I kind of had to make a decision here. Actually, I'll do this one first. This is another veteran. I am going to use him as a heel, and it's AJ Styles. AJ Styles, another guy. How do I build a modern roster and not put him on it? Just like Joe, you know, how do I if I want veterans in my locker room, these are two guys I want in my locker room. And honestly, it's always better, I think, to use veterans as heels, because from the perspective of in the ring, especially with these two guys, if you're wanting them to teach younger talent how to work, usually the heel leads the match.
Yeah.
And the heel's putting the other guy over in the end. So that's why I probably tend to use, I mean, they may flip-flop back and forth, obviously, but as I'm starting out, I'm going to use AJ as a heel. And yes, I'm going to go ahead and take Omos with him, not to wrestle. But I think the visual of AJ with that big fucking son of a bitch behind him is cool. You know, because that guy's like twice as wide, twice as tall. It makes AJ look even more like a heel.
Wrestle, I'm okay with it.
No, he's just AJ's big fucking shadow.
And this might be stupid too. I don't know, but and I hate when I should say I hate, but sometimes compare it like saying, "Oh, this is this guy of this generation." You know what I mean? Sometimes that's not fair or whatever. But you know who AJ is of his generation? Randy Savage.
I was just about to say Randy Savage.
He's the Randy Savage of his generation, man.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to see him do anything bad. He gives a shit about his job. He'll do whatever you want him to do. He's the Randy Savage of his generation.
He's going to make your worst talent looking better than they should ever have any right to look.
Yep.
Look at what Savage did with DDP.
It's the only time DDP was entertaining.
The next guy I've got here, and it was hard. It was when I got up into the top, it was hard to decide, but I have my pecking order, and you know, you're just starting this thing, so people can go up and down. But he's doing the best work of his career right now, and he's doing it in the role we all knew that he should have been doing it in 7 years ago. And it's Roman Reigns. And yes, I am scooping up Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns. But he is... He is. I love it. Cornette says that he looks like Alfred Hitchcock. Here's the thing about Roman that I have to give Vince credit. Vince knew that guy was the man. He just. Old Vince, I always say anymore, there's two Vinces. There's Vince McMahon, there's old Vince. Old Vince just wanted to be me versus my audience for so long and cast Roman as that babyface that no one wanted to see him as. I always said it, he was like Diesel in that he was a great heel. People started reacting to him, and Vince took it too far. And he did the same thing with Diesel. That's why, like, if he would have made, I know I'm getting off on a tangent, but if he would have made Kevin Nash a heel Kevin Nash Diesel champion, he might have drew.
And not even make him a heel Kevin Diesel champion, but not take everything that made Diesel cool. Like, Diesel could have been the champ and could have been a babyface. But he didn't need to be fucking wearing goddamn Christmas sweaters and singing Merry Christmas right after he won the belt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they took all the badass, cool Kevin Nash, or Diesel, whatever you want to call it at the time, like all the shit people were like that liked about him, and then we're like, okay, now smile and be happy and everything. It's like, no, that's not what people liked about me.
Mm-hmm.
They liked
and I feel that
badass motherfucker.
So do you feel that's a fair comparison, comparing Roman Reigns to Kevin Nash from 95?
And eventually they're going to have to – eventually Roman Reigns is going to become a babyface again.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. And
I'm wondering
if they did with Nash and just make him the, some Roman Reigns again guy, you know?
I'm half wondering if it's coming up with him and Lesnar, if this is Lesnar and Heyman playing Roman. But that's a whole nother deal. As far as him on my roster goes, I know he's going to be a great heel. I know he's going to give me great matches, and again, he's going to come with Paul Heyman, and that's great. Because Roman also has really good matches. He is granted now. Since it's his entire career, he's all WWE style matches, but you can work that out. You know, he can adapt to work with other people, but. Definitely going with Roman. So now I've come to my top 4 heels in the company. The first one, I could not pass on getting this guy on my roster. However, he's going to have to be carefully booked. That's what I'm going to come up with. Have Delirious come up with ways to carefully book this guy. Because he's so good, but he can't be the champ. At least not at first. So we got to figure out a way, maybe introduce him after the initial title tournament or something like that. Because as time goes on, he is eventually going to be a very, very dominant champion. I'm putting Walter on my roster.
Yeah. He's a badass. He's like Vader-esque, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure other people have said that too. And eventually he could be the guy that Like, okay, we gotta have this. We gotta have this great match, guys. What are we gonna do? Okay, let's have Walter versus Samoa Joe.
That's that. You know what? And Walter is the guy.
Right. You don't do that right away, but yeah.
No. But you know what? Honestly,
no.
You know what? You got my brain going. You know what you do with Walter and Samoa Joe? You book Walter versus Samoa Joe when Joe comes to you and says, "Hey Nate, man, I'm ready to hang up the boots and just be behind the scenes, and it's over for me. I'm done." Okay, Walter's putting you out of professional. You know what I mean? Like, this is a passing of the torch. Yeah. Walter's going to put you out of professional wrestling. He is so good. I don't have enough time in my life to watch as much wrestling as is available. And the reason I'm saying that is I don't watch a lot. I watch WWE, or I fast forward through it. I watch AEW. I fast forward through some of that. I watch NWA pretty much without fast forwarding religiously. I used to NXT. I don't think I will be now. But I don't watch a lot of other indie stuff unless there's something that catches my imagination, and then I watch until it doesn't have my imagination anymore. I am getting to a point. I don't watch Evolve. I didn't watch Evolve a lot. When Walter was in Evolve, I watched Evolve because I watched one of his matches, and then I got hooked on their product for a little bit because he was there. And he's a fantastic talent, and he's definitely going to be on my roster.
All right.
So the next guy on my roster is actually going to be my first champion. And we talked about him a little bit earlier, but it's Nick Aldis. And Nick Aldis is going to be my first world champion. And I will say when I go through my baby faces who he's going to go over in the finals of the tournament. But he is my one, maybe my, I don't know, he might be my 1B as far as my favorite wrestler on the planet right now. He always brings it. He's a fantastic heel. I don't know if that guy could ever be a babyface at this point. Like,
there's one thing that can make him a babyface. Just one.
What's that?
It would be if like somebody would like, and he wouldn't be a babyface that long. He'd probably just be a babyface long enough for that program. But it would be if like somebody would like knock down Mickey James.
Yeah.
And then he really wouldn't be a babyface. He'd be a babyface to the crowd. You know what I mean? Like he wouldn't need to change anything about his character, except maybe not so much being like, I'm the best wrestler in the world. Like he could be like, there's a lot of things you can do to me, but the one thing you don't do is put your hands on my family. Like that's like the one thing.
Yeah.
And then they would solidify him as being like a babyface, in my opinion.
For that particular rivalry, he'd be a tweener kind of.
Yeah, he'd be the face in that situation. But other than that, it's the one thing that's the one thing. And I know he said he was AJ was the Macho Man or whatever, but that's the thing that turned Macho Man face. You know what I mean? You don't fuck with Liz, you know?
Right.
So yeah, and they have a different relationship, obviously, and they're just forming it because they had Mickey come out and stand by him and all that shit. But that would be the one thing, would be somebody going at his family.
But he's definitely going to be my first champ. He's going to have great matches on top, and just an all-around fantastic wrestler and talent and promo. And he brings a bit of, as you noticed with my roster here pretty consistently, not necessarily, I don't want to say an old school vibe, but kind of an old school vibe, Yeah. I'm picking my talent based on the fact that I'm an old school wrestling fan, so that's the kind of the product I'm going to not and I'm not dissing it. I'm not dissing it at all. I'm not going to have a retro feeling like the NWA does.
Yeah. And if you don't want to put McAfee with Wardlow, put Wardlow with Nick Aldis.
Yeah. The next guy, and I'm going to use him as
that style of champion shouldn't say always needs, but usually has an enforcer, like somebody with.
Well, and I do have a tag team on my tag team list that is going to be paired up with him, but I could put Wardlow into that group too. The next guy, I'm going to use him as a heel, and he is my favorite wrestler in the world right now, Adam Cole.
All right.
I like Adam better as a heel than a babyface. And again, I mean, I'm always going to get a good match out of him, and he's also, I think because he's such a good wrestler, because he's so good in the ring, it doesn't get mentioned enough. He's also a fantastic promo.
Yeah. And he's somebody that, like you said, you want to use him as a heel and you like him better as a heel. But if he needs to be a baby face, he can be a baby face. People like to do the baby thing with him. And
yeah.
You said this plenty of times. You can say a dude's like a good looking dude or whatever, you know, and not be like, oh, you like the pain. You know what I mean? like he's Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. Yeah, with a better attitude.
With a better attitude. Like I said, I hate comparing people with people. But he's fucking Shawn. He kind of looks like Shawn Michaels. Like, you go out there and be like, this is Adam Michaels.
Shawn Michaels' son.
Shawn Michaels' son. He didn't know it, but he got a cocktail waitress in Boise pregnant 27 years ago or whatever, however old Adam Cole is. And there you go. But
and then Shawn Michaels didn't want to acknowledge him, so Michael Cole adopted him. He's like, I always knew my dad was cooler than you.
Yeah.
My real dad.
Yeah, my real dad, Michael. Can't tell me what to do anymore, Mike. But yeah, he's super talented, and in one of my reviews of AEW, I know we're not totally talking about modern, like the actual modern product. This is more your roster. But I think AEW, it's not unfixable. But I don't like what they did with him. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
he just feels like a dude. Like
yeah,
he just feels like right away he's back in with the elite, and like he had that match with Kazarian on AEW, which he said he didn't watch yet, but he opens it. Which is whatever, but it just, like, right off the bat, it just felt like he was just... No, that wasn't that show. Sorry, it was the week before.
No, yeah, I did. Yeah, I was going to say, I did see that match.
I got my lines crossed a little bit. Obviously, Omega and Bryan opened up this last one, but you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Adam Cole signing with AEW should have been a bigger deal than it was, and it just kind of feels like he was, like... the baloney between the fucking CM Punk and Daniel Bryan thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I would have done him the way that WWE in a sense did Brian Pillman. Like have him have a contract signing and be like, look, I'm glad to be here. And he doesn't even need to heal on everybody right away, but his entrance should have been something. It should have been separate from everybody else, and then gradually bring him in. You know, like, hey, I've signed with AEW. Like Tony Khan can be like, hey, I'm excited to announce here he is. He's going to put pen to paper. We've signed Adam Cole. Even have like the elite guys. They're like, yeah, but Cole being like, you know, I'm new here. I don't know if you guys are the guys. Like, I love you guys, but you know, I've kind of went off 5 years and kind of did this shit on my own. Yeah. You know? And then eventually you can put them in there. But to me, it just felt like they just lopped them right in, and there you are. You're part of the NWO now. Say what you want to say. You're part of the NWO now. That's just how I feel about it.
The last heel on my roster. I won't.
Don't put him with your top heel, Kenny Omega. I know you're going to say it.
Don't you do that, Delirious. The next guy, the last heel on my roster,
Kenny Omega, right?
Best heel in wrestling. Kenny Omega can be on my YouTube show.
You didn't say YouTube show.
MJF.
Yeah. MJF is currently the only actual professional wrestler in wrestling. In mainstream wrestling.
He is.
I know that you might not know, you might not get what I'm saying there, but he is. He's the one professional wrestler out there, in my opinion. He's the only guy. He's the only guy doing his fucking job the way it's supposed to be done. Like he, when he was cutting that promo, I think it was the one where he was like, Brian's down there, the promo you didn't like very much.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing he did in that was that crowd was like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And he was just like, no.
Yeah.
He went right back into it.
Yeah, like, that popped me too. He was like, no.
He's like, no. And guess what they did? They stopped chanting "shut the fuck up" because they were like,
Well, and we just talked about, he would be the guy that would be the guy that Aldis would be the face in a feud with. If that's who you'd do that with easily. Yeah, he'd be the guy to be like, look here.
He's the heel on your roster that would pie face Mickey James.
Yes. Yep. But yeah, he's
and not even doing like, oh, I'm gonna pie face her. Like, I keep interrupting you, sorry. But it's like he doesn't even pie face her because, oh, this is gonna make Nick Aldis mad. Like, she's just kind of in his way, and he's going out there to make his point about some feud that he's having with somebody, and he's just like, just knocks her down and keeps on going.
Inconsequential wench.
Yeah. Get out of my way. And then Nick Aldis could be like, what the fuck? Yeah.
When I was writing my roster, he was literally the first name I wrote down. So he's definitely my number one draft pick, MJF. So now the baby faces. My first baby face is going to have fantastic matches. He is quickly becoming one of my favorite wrestlers. And I will tell you a little trivia fact. I don't know if you know about him or not. But anyway, it's Ilya Dragunov.
Okay.
He's fucking amazing. Like, we talked about MJF being the real pro wrestler. Dragunov and Walter's matches are the most real pro wrestling matches of the past decade.
Well, I understand that, but it's a different thing what I'm saying about
I know. But I just wanted to piggyback off of that. And the guy's fantastic. And I don't know if you knew this or not. Did you know that he is the only, with all the Russians in the history of American wrestling, he's the only Russian-born Russian wrestler in American wrestling history? Did you know that? It's fucking wild, isn't it, though? It's just wild. Fucking pro wrestling, ladies and gentlemen.
Nikolai wasn't even Russian.
No, he was like Yugoslavian or something.
Yeah.
And fucking Ivan Koloff was from Minnesota.
Canadian.
Canada? Oh, I thought he was Minnesotan. Okay.
He was like, I don't remember what his fucking name was. It was like Billy Redbeard or something in Canada, because Brett talks about it in his book. I'd have to Google it. But he talks about seeing Ivan Koloff in when they brought him up to Stampede, and bringing that up to him, and Koloff was like, I don't want to talk about that. I'm on Koloff, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, none of the Russians are Russian.
But yeah, I'm definitely going to have Dragunov on my roster. And he, for being foreign, he speaks well English, so you can cut good promos and have great matches.
McNutley.
What was it?
Red McNutley.
Red McNutley.
Yeah.
Not quite as imposing as Ivan Koloff. The next guy that I'm going to have, I've been a mark for him since MLW. His faction at NXT kind of annoys me, but doesn't. Like, I like his faction. I don't like their promos for... Anyway, I'm not going to get off on that. Anyway, I really like this guy. I actually, at this moment, I am blanking on what his actual name is in NXT. Shane Swerve Scott is going to be on my roster.
That's pretty much his name.
Isn't it Isaiah Swerve or something in NXT? Didn't they change his name?
Yeah. Row guy, isn't he?
What's that?
He's a Hit Row guy, isn't he?
Yes. He's the leader of the Hit Row.
Fucking shit gimmick.
Well, I don't. I'm a man of two minds on that because they annoy me on the mic and stuff, but I enjoy them in the ring. So even the big guy, like that whole unit is like, I'm like, oh God, stop cutting promos. And then they get in the ring, I'm like, okay, I can dig this. But anyway, I like Swerve. I have since MLW, and I want him to be on my roster to give me some high impact, and he can be a guy that is a young guy that's bucking up against AJ Styles or what have you. And I dig him.
He's my equivalent to your Miro when I was talking about my roster.
No, he's not. There is another one coming up that I know you're going to say that too. The next guy that I'm bringing in, he's a veteran, but he's almost a guy that you look at kind of as a young veteran, but he's not. I'm tripping over my words in the way I'm trying to describe him. But anyway, I think just because he never got his just due until now. But on my roster, he's gonna have great matches with Bray Wyatt, Wardlow, maybe even Walter. It would be an interesting match. Trevor Murdoch.
All right. Nothing wrong with Trevor.
No, and Trevor is a guy that
he can talk. He can.
He's a guy whose career path does not match his talent level.
Yeah.
And
I
don't know if it was,
go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, I don't know if in Vince Land, if it was his look. I don't know what it was.
It was his look. That's the only thing it could be. And I don't want to speak bad about somebody, but he also and he would probably never say it because everything I've ever heard, he said that he loves the guy like a brother, but he had a problematic tag team partner too, and that probably hurt him.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact. He's super talented. He's super relatable. He's a guy that he's, how do I say, like, I know he was trained by Harley Race, but the more I think, like, I know he's trained by Harley, and obviously puts Harley over. But Trevor Murdoch, and then people say, oh, Murdoch, Dick Murdoch. To me, he's the closest thing character-wise to Dusty Rhodes that we have now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And I know people have dogged Dusty in the ring before and shit, but Dusty wasn't, when he was younger, he wasn't terrible in the ring. But Trevor, and Trevor Murdoch's 10 times the wrestler Dusty Rhodes was, but he's a big fat guy that seems like a decent dude, and you want to see him be successful. Mm-hmm. And when you look at him, and how you said, like, oh, his career doesn't match the time he's been in the business, or is that how you phrased it?
No, his career trajectory and past doesn't match the amount of talent he has.
That's what. Okay, that's the same. That's what I was gonna say. Fucking dude is like, oh, he's fat and he's lovable, but guess what? He can work his fucking ass off.
Yes.
That fat motherfucker shouldn't be able to do a Canadian destroyer, but he can.
But he can, and he will.
And he will. And guess what? He doesn't do it all the time. And just, he's, like I said, he's a relatable dude, and I like him. He's never going to be, and I don't think he even will be for the NWA. Like, he's never going to be a champion for you or anything like that. But he's going to be the guy you can put it on when you need to. But if you take it off him, it ain't going to hurt him, because you're just going to be like, oh, shucks, that's Trevor Murdoch, you know?
Yeah.
And he can have it. He can have another reason to have a feud other than a belt, you know?
Right. Yep. I think that a great feud, looking at my roster here, I think a great feud would be him and LA Knight.
Yeah.
You know, LA Knight's like, who's this big fat motherfucker standing in the ring?
You know what I was going to say before that, even?
MJF?
Yes. Because MJF needs to have like a Piper's Pit type thing on your show. Like, MJF shouldn't wrestle every week. Just telling you that now.
Mm-hmm.
He should have like a Piper's Pit type thing. And Murdoch could be the first guy that just like, fuck you, and just crack him in the face. You know what I mean?
Spit tobacco in his face.
No, he needs to crack him in the face. Like, when you were just talking about him, it's like, I am not going to lie. I like to go out and have a good time and stuff, and we live in a small town, and I have been in a bar plenty of times when a guy that looks like MJF is drunk, being an asshole, and talks to a guy that looks like Trevor Murdoch. And by the time it's done, the guy that looks like MJF is on the fucking ground. Going, what happened? That's reality.
It is what it is.
Because I'm friends with the dudes that look like Trevor Murdoch. And when they knock the guy out that looks like MJF, I'm like,
The next guy that I have here is the guy that I thought you were going to meh. I thought he was going to be your Miro.
Well, maybe I'll surprise you.
Cameron Grimes.
He's not my Miro. It's still Swerve, because
Okay.
I can see. He's a guy that I can see the appeal of why people would like Cameron Grimes, but I just don't like Cameron Grimes.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I dig him.
And like I said, I just, when I see him, and I part of it, I think, has to do with that $1 Million Man gimmick and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. And I don't know. He's not Miro, because I can understand why people would enjoy him. And he should hang out with Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah, that's why they're. That's actually why they're here together. Because when I was writing, I was like Trevor Murdoch, and then I was like, oh, Cameron Grimes.
They're friends. Usually,
they're gonna team up against MJF and LA Knight.
Yeah, usually I like oddball friends, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But those guys, you couldn't have them on the same roster and not have like buddies.
It'd be funny to have. Well, it would just be fun because Cameron Grimes is kind of the his character is the guy that thinks he's bigger than he is and badder than he is. So it'd be fun just to have an outside the ring segment with him trying to go beer for beer with Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah.
You know,
See, what I'm saying, like, I can see the charisma of Cameron Grimes and whatnot, and I'm not going to deny that he has a good personality and stuff. I'm not a fan of Cameron Grimes once he gets in the ring. Whereas that Swerve guy, I don't see it at all. I really don't. Like when I see it, it's like I don't see the appeal of this guy. Same way with that Carmelo, whatever, the new guy they got.
Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah. He's
I don't like him. Yeah, I don't like him.
And did you watch him and Trick Daddy kicking that other guy the other day on NXT? Those are some of the worst kicks I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, well, that Trick guy's fucking annoying anyway. Like, God, this whole thing is annoying.
So don't sign on.
The next guy on my roster, when I need something to go down hardcore, crazy, I'm going to want this guy around, and he is a gigantic ball of charisma. He is one of the few guys that I will say, I put this guy with some of the guys that I look at and I shake my head and don't understand, like a Shelton Benjamin or somebody like that Vince just never capitalized fully on his potential.
Before you said Vince, I thought you were going to say Jeremiah Plunkett. I like Jeremiah Plunkett, but it's like what's a random dude I could think of? But go ahead.
It's Jon Moxley.
Yes, he was on my roster.
Jon Moxley, and I don't like the garbage stuff, but he can do. And I'm not saying he is the same as, but what Jon Moxley does with hardcore or / quote unquote garbage wrestling is he makes it. It's a dirty mouth, but he's using mouthwash like Mick Foley.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, he's taking this that should be just something where you would just go, oh, for fuck's sake. And he can make it, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is, but he makes it acceptable to me. Like, I'm not a garbage wrestling fan. I don't particularly care to watch death matches and shit and FMW style stuff.
You know what it is about him? You know why? It's because he doesn't look like a fucking schlub.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, the dude looks like a grown-ass professional wrestler. He doesn't look like some fat fuck that after he's done having this goddamn match, he's going to take Sunday off, and then he's going to go back and work at the Napa, which there's nothing wrong with working at Napa, but that's not who I want to see on TV. You know what I mean?
He's one of those guys that I just don't understand why Cornette shits on him like he does. Like,
it's because he does the garbage stuff, and once you do garbage shit, Cornette is one of my favorite people in the world.
Same.
To listen to, okay? But Cornette has one trait that annoys me. And I've had bosses in my life that have been like that. And it's like, once you do something that they don't like, that's all of a sudden your fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like, I used to have a boss where this guy that was a good worker was late a couple times. So then he just became the guy that's late all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he's late twice. He hasn't been late for like
2 years. Yeah.
But he was late twice. You know what I mean? Like, okay. Jon Moxley, before he got to the WWE, worked in CZW and did garbage wrestling. Okay. He was a professional wrestler and he wanted to wrestle, and that was the style that he got into, and it was what got him booked, and he did it. And then for the entire amount of time, however long it was that he was in the WWE, how long was he in the WWE? You might know.
Oh, he was in WWE from 2011 until 2018.
It's almost 10 years, right?
Or maybe 2019. Yeah, almost 10 years. Maybe 2019. Whenever AEW, shortly after AEW started.
So he did CZW, and then he went to the WWF for almost 10 years. And how many matches did you see Dean Ambrose have in the WWE that were garbage matches?
Right.
You know what I mean? None. And then he goes to AEW, and honestly, how many matches in AEW, how many, you've been watching it longer than I have, how many actual garbage matches has Dean Ambrose had, Jon Moxley had in AEW?
maybe 2 or 3.
2 or 3. And AEW's been around almost 3 years now.
Well, yeah, and they do.
Well,
and that's
why is he a garbage wrestler?
Right. Yes, and I totally agree with you. That's where
He's
I
a
was.
Professional wrestler that sometimes does garbage wrestling.
And that is exactly what earlier when I tripped over my tongue and made some stupid analogy about mouthwash. That's where I was trying to go talking about Mick Foley. Mick Foley, the reason I liken Moxley to Foley is Foley could do hardcore wrestling, but still make it an entertaining, not garbage match. You know, he would structure it to where, we're going to get these spots in and stuff, like that Randy Orton match, and stuff like that. But
his fucking match with Edge at WrestleMania is one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history.
Absolutely.
And Cornette, and I don't want to keep talking about Cornette, but he has selective hatred.
Mm-hmm. And he holds a grudge.
And he holds a grudge, and there's nothing. I hold grudges. I'll hold a grudge to the fucking till I die with somebody if they fuck me over or whatever, somebody I care about. But he has selective hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to preface this by saying this dude's one of my favorite dudes in the history of professional wrestling. But and this John Moxley would never even tell you that his career is even comparable to this guy. But how can you be like, John Moxley's nothing but a garbage wrestler? Because he worked in CCW for 5 years before he got to the WWE. And then be like, Terry Funk's the greatest ever.
Right.
Terry Funk did garbage wrestling.
Yep.
Here, they don't even call it that. But where Terry did it, they actually call it garbage wrestling.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that was my tirade, and I'm done. But John Moxley should be on your. He was on my roster, and that fucking Wild Thing entrance at first, I was kind of like, I don't like that because it wasn't your thing, and that was Onita's thing or whatever. But it works for me. He has a great entrance.
Yeah. His entrance is one of the few entrances in modern wrestling that every time I see it, I mark out for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, thing.
Yeah, when people sing that Judas song, I'm not even hating Chris Jericho, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I know we talk about him being fat and this, that, and the other. Chris Jericho, it's the same thing with Moxley. Just because he's there now doesn't mean I'm going to hate him. Has he done shit I didn't like there? Yeah, but he's still fucking Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
He's still fucking funny, and he's still entertaining, and still cut promos and shit. But when they do the Judas thing and everybody sings along with that, it seems, how do I say, like contrived or like, oh, we're just doing it to do it because that's what we're supposed to do. When the people sing along with Wild Thing, it's fucking awesome. Yeah. And it's because they're not even singing the whole song. Like, people are like, you make my heart sing. You make it. Like, some of them are, but 90% of them people are just Wild Thing. Like,
and then they're like, groovy.
Yeah. That fucking Wild Thing entrance, that is the best goddamn entrance in professional wrestling.
Yep. Today.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, today. Not of all time. In the current product right now, fucking Wild Thing's awesome. And if I was running AEW, he'd be my champ. I know it's crazy because, you got Daniel Bryan there, you got Punk there, you got Cole there. Fucking John Moxley would be my fucking champ.
The next babyface on my roster is going to be my first Intercontinental Champion. And this is another guy Jim Cornette hates on for no fucking good reason. Anyway, Pete Dunne.
Pineapple Pete. And not even because I hate him, but when he puts his hair up in his bun, that's like a pineapple.
I fucking love Pete Dunne.
Pete Dunne too. I'd put him on the other side of your roster though.
As a heel?
Yeah. He's a mumble mouth. And I'm not knocking him. He just, and I shouldn't even say he has an accent his accent is sometimes almost too strong. Like, it's nothing against him, and I'm sure what he's saying is fine. And if he's back over there, I should say over there, if he's back in his home country, I'm sure they understand what he's saying. And I'm not saying I never understand what he's saying. I just don't think that I want to say, like, if you would put Pete Dunne on your MJF interview program, even if Pete Dunne would have good lines to counteract what MJF would say, which hopefully you're having your guys just say what they want to say.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Even if Pete Dunne would deliver it, like even if the words he was saying were good, his delivery wouldn't be it. And I might be thinking too much into this stuff. But that's that's what I think hurts Pete Dunne, is that sometimes I don't understand what that fucker's saying.
I guess I think of, when I look at my roster, the reason he's on the babyface side of my roster is I look at potential matchups. Pete Dunne and LA Knight. Pete Dunne and AJ Styles. Pete Dunne and Walter. Obviously, we've seen that. Pete Dunne and fucking Nick Aldis.
Yeah, I see it. But I don't know. I just, like, I guess a babyface doesn't necessarily have to completely know how to talk, or I keep saying know how to talk, needs to be like good at speaking or whatever.
Right.
But so, yeah, I guess you just won me over. All right, he can stay where he's at. Yeah.
Thank you for your permission. You're welcome. But yeah, he's going to be my first Intercontinental Champion. And the next guy, he was on your roster.
Are you going to let him go everywhere? Not everywhere. But if he's the Intercontinental, that's what I would do with him. Oh, do that with him. What? He's your Intercontinental Champion. But guess what? Guess what they never did with the Intercontinental Championship?
They never defended it.
Intercontinental. They never went to all the continents. Let that dude go everywhere.
That's the funniest thing about the name Intercontinental Champion, is it literally means the same thing as world.
Well, no, kinda. Yeah, I guess.
No, actually, I'm wrong.
You are, because not everything in the world is on the continents.
Well, and not to mention, inter means connected. So technically the United States and Africa aren't connected. It would just be Canada, the United States, Mexico, and South America. So I'm fucking wrong.
Yeah, but we're going to let him go to England.
All right. Well, he is English.
That's what I would do with him. Like, open up the borders, and then that gets you opened up with other promotions throughout the Intercontinentals. And you learn a working relationship with him and almost make him like the NWA champion was, but it's not your world champion. It's your Intercontinental champion.
He's my guy that gives me my forbidden door, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to bring everybody in. Fuck that. Like, oh no, this is kind of a one-way street. You know what I mean? Like, we'll let you borrow him, but I don't need everybody coming in my door, but we can go in yours. And then we'll show that match on my show. You know what I mean? Like, you could do that with your show. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, guys. Our Intercontinental Champion, Pete Dunne, the best wrestler on the planet, the best wrestler, or what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like,
don't even have a world champion. Have, like, whatever the promotion of your show is. Have him be the, whatever the name of your show is, champion. And then Pete Dunne be your Intercontinental Champion. This dude's just going up and down the Intercontinentals, just beating the shit out of everybody. Like, all right, let's see what Pete Dunne was doing in South America today. He was kicking the fuck out of this luchador. Look. And they're going to like it. Huh?
Check it out.
And they're going to like it because they get that guy on their show. You know what I mean? And you're going to like it because you get to have Pete Dunne be on your show. And Pete Dunne's going to like it because he's getting paid twice.
Yeah. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
The next guy on my babyface roster, which we discussed at length on your roster, so I don't know that we'll have to touch on it too much, Adam Page. Adam Page and he's in my top 4 babyfaces. And actually, now that we're looking at it, he's going to have a loose affiliation with Cameron Grimes and Trevor Murdoch.
was gonna say that. Like he could be the guy that like the camera pans over after Cameron Grimes falls down. Trevor's looking at him, and Paige like, he ain't driving, is he?
That's some cowboy shit.
So if he needs a ride, I got my horse. And he just jumps on his horse and rides away.
But yeah, I don't know how much more we can say about him than we did when we talked about your roster. He's fantastic, totally misused, and I would use him properly.
Good.
He'd be a great guy to feud with Aldis.
Yeah.
Like, like Aldis is like, look at you walking around with your beer in a cup. Like, you uncivilized barbarian. I wish I would have hired Regal because he'd be cool to be with Aldis. Anyway, the next guy.
I'm waiting to hear who your tag team that you have with him is because I have an idea.
Okay. The next guy, the next babyface on my roster is actually the guy that's going to be Aldis's first feud because Aldis is going to, with the help of his henchman, is going to screw this guy over and be the first champion. But this is the babyface that is going to be in that final match. It's and Aaron, it's one of my favorites. You said who was it? Was it Dolph Ziggler? I'm putting this guy on my roster because I like him.
Yeah,
I'm putting this guy on my roster because I like him, and it's Drew McIntyre.
All right. Nothing wrong with Drew McIntyre.
Oh, man. Drew McIntyre does shit for a guy his size that he shouldn't be able to do. And he is charismatic. He has – and it sounds silly, and I don't know. I don't think it's silly, but it sounds silly. He has a cool fucking accent.
Yeah. And I was just about to say that he's the opposite of, like, Pete Dunne for me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like his accent's cool, but and whatever, but it's not such of a hard of an accent that I don't know what the fuck the guy's saying.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Because there's not going back to comedy, but there's been comedians that because I like a lot of like European comedy, like British comedians and shit, like Jimmy Carr and Sean Locke.
So funny.
Sean Locke, guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some of like I've tried to watch like comedy from like Scotland and Ireland, and I know the dudes are funny, but I can't watch everything they do because I can't always get what they're saying. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's really it's a fucking weird dialect. And I think part of it is that he's been over here probably long enough, and WWF or WWE, because they were fucking professionals, probably gave him some sort of like speech classes and shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not overbearing, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, and he looks like he's built like if you're I said it like a bunch of times on here. If you're gonna draw a fucking professional wrestler, you're gonna look like goddamn Drew McIntyre. And like I was watching Raw a couple weeks ago, first Raw I watched, that fucking dude picked up that Shanky dude and put him in a drive.
It's insane. He's like
I was like, this Stanky dude sucks. Like I like Jinder Mahal, but Jinder Mahal's little group is terrible. I hate those dudes.
Yeah.
What is it, Mosar and Stanky or whatever?
Something the fuck like that.
Whatever. Stanky Leg and Pete. Like, they suck. But he picked that big motherfucker up and gave him a Michinoku driver. And then I told myself, even though I don't like Stanky, I respect Stanky because that dude was in the locker room and Drew McIntyre or whoever was like, hey, I want to give you a Michinoku driver. And he didn't go, wait a minute, I'm 7 foot and I weigh about 285 pounds or however big I am.
Right.
And you want to give me a Michinoku driver? Stanky was like, do it. And they fucking did it. Christ, that was insane. Why are more people talking? Like, that should be on the goddamn beginning of your fucking montage, is him hitting that fucking Michinoku driver. It was fantastic.
It's like I told you when you mentioned it to me through text message. He is Drew is on the level of Cesaro and Cena to me for being just sick, super strong.
Yeah, like when I watched that, I was like, that is stupid. Like, not stupid. Like, I was like, that is fucking insane. Did you end up watching it?
Yeah. No, actually, the funny thing is, I watched the 90-minute.
That's what I was worried about, was that you watched it.
And hold on. They didn't have it on there, but because you mentioned it, I found it on YouTube and watched it. So yes, I did see it. It was insane.
That was fucking sick when I watched that.
The next guy was also on your roster, and I don't know that we need to elaborate a ton on him because we did on when he was put on your roster, but he is going to be one of my top faces because he is one of my favorites. And it's Shinsuke Nakamura. And unlike I know you would, because you don't like him.
Booger's not on my roster.
Yeah, Boogs is coming in on my roster because I like the Boogs. And on every pay-per-view, him and McAfee are going to jam out at the announce table because I mark out for that. I'm sorry. Now, Boogs ain't going to be wrestling on my roster. But, yeah, I dig that. I dig that whole act. I just really do. I don't like him. I don't like Boogs as a wrestler, but I like him as Nakamura's guitar guy. I just dig it. I think it's cool.
You know, you should have booked other than Boogs.
Nakamura!
You need to get more than Boogs. Get a nostalgia feel. Fucking Man Mountain Rock.
I thought you were going to say Rick Derringer.
No. Man Mountain Rock.
I think it's funny that Man Mountain Rock's song that he was playing on his guitar was Droz' entrance music.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was in WWF because didn't they had him pretend like he was playing the guitar, didn't they?
Yeah.
In WCW actually played it. Like, the dude could play the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why not just let him play the guitar?
Because it's the WWF, and they put him in jammies, and then they put him in big jammies, and yeah. Anyway, so the last babyface that I'm recruiting, and he is not going to be on any of the first shows because I don't want him involved. If you have him on the first shows and you don't put him in the championship tournament, you look like a putz. So he's not going to be on the first few shows. He's going to come in after that and be inserted into things after that. But because he's back and because you know how much I'm a fan, I had to recruit CM Punk to be on my show. And I'm going to use Punk sparingly. Like, to me, Punk is the guy he's not on your show every week. He's not in a program every month. You know, like CM Punk comes around for the big pay-per-views.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to have him on my roster if I can. And he is he's the man, and he's on my roster.
All right. I can dig it. I know that, how do I say this? Because I don't want to get people all pissed off or whatever. The 5 people listening. I enjoy CM Punk. Okay. And I've never told myself that CM Punk wasn't talented and CM Punk wasn't entertaining and it isn't great. And to me, and I think it might be because I started getting kind of disenfranchised with wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't understand at the time what CM Punk meant. If
right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because after he left, nothing changed. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It was, to me, it was like, it was, like, he was right at him leaving was right at the start of when I started disliking professional wrestling for the current professional wrestling. And it wasn't because of CM Punk. It was because I didn't like the stories and the fucking PC until he came back. I didn't realize. All right, this guy had a bigger impact and was more important than he was when he left. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he was just one guy. You know what I mean? And I understand now that he's more important than he was when he left. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, so now we'll roll on to my tag teams here. The first tag team I'll mention is the team that I'm going to pair up with Nick Aldis as his little flunkies, if you will. And it is Danny Burch and Oni Lorcan.
I like
those guys. Those guys don't get enough credit for how good they are, I don't think.
The governor.
They're a fantastic tag team.
They are. And now that I know which team you said, Lee, when you're talking about wanting Nick Aldis to feud with Adam Page, that could be a fun spot. Is Nick Aldis being like, "You're not classy. You drink your beer out of a cup, you know, and like, say he smacks the beer out of his hand or whatever, and he goes at him, and Aldis powders out, sends his boys at him. Say he punks out fucking Danny Burch, knocks him out of the ring, knocks down Oni Lorcan, and guess what he does? Fucking hog ties him. And then he could be like, cowboy shit, motherfucker. You know what I mean? And Lorcan could just be like, do something. Like, he's just hog tied.
Help me. Help me.
And fucking Birch and all this are like, no.
And then Murdoch and fucking Grimes are out there.
You might have...
Crazy segment.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
The next tag team I have, and it's mostly because I'm going to get my hands on one of the participants in the tag team as a talent. And I'm not including one of the people. So there's only two of these three coming in. And it's Jurassic Express, and I don't think you're a fan of Luchasaurus. I don't mind him. I love Jungle Boy. Marco Stunt's not coming along, obviously. We're going to leave him in the afterbirth, but I like them as a team. I don't mind Luchasaurus for what he is.
Okay. I'm going to say this about Luchasaurus. I don't think he's a terrible wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's a big fucker. And he can speak. I don't like the gimmick. I think the gimmick is stupid. That's just if you take the mask off of him and give him another name, probably, but the gimmick itself, I don't like.
I guess we disagree.
I know you don't watch. I know you don't watch The Walking Dead, but that's why I call him Betasaurus, because there's this character on The Walking Dead.
Yes. No, I watch it.
Okay. But that's like, he reminds me of Beta.
I can see that.
Like, fuck off, Half Moon. You know what I mean? Which that's one of that they finally did that on The Walking Dead, by the way. With Beta's character, he was Half Moon. Mm-hmm. He was that country, like before the zombie apocalypse happened. He was a country music star, and it was like the whole time I watched this, lived the apocalypse, and it was great because like when he's dying, like you remember his death scene, like when he's dying, like Negan's like, "Did you see what the fuck that was?" It was Half Moon. Like he didn't say his name, but he was like, "See the hell that was?" It don't matter who he was, but even Negan was like, that character was like, whole time it was Half Moon. Like, I like this.
a fun twist.
Yeah, it was great.
But yeah, like I said, I'm getting them more because of Jungle Boy, but I don't mind Luchasaurus, so he can come along for the ride. The next team that I'm recruiting is it's the Usos, and obviously I'm going to have them with Roman and Paul Heyman.
Driver.
What?
I said, and a driver, preferably.
They're a great team, though.
They are.
And they have charisma. They work in a high. They're almost like the Hardys when the Hardys were at their best, in that they work a high spot style, but they're not spot monkeys. You know?
Yeah, and I've criticized them before, and it wasn't necessarily their fault, but when I didn't like them was when they were, what was it, when they were like, we're going to put you in lockdown and doing all that shit.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was annoying. But if you just let them be them, that's great. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't gimmick them up too much.
Yes, absolutely.
And I never like I said, I never knocked their work. I just think that, like, when they were doing all that shit with them, their matches were great. It's like their promos seem more choreographed than their fucking matches. You know what I mean?
And that's because they were.
Yeah, and that's what I didn't like about them, because they weren't good at it.
So the next team is, and these guys aren't going to be my initial tag team champions, but obviously they are going to be my tag team champions at some point. And they were on your roster too. It was FTR. You can't have a modern wrestling tag team roster and not have FTR. They're the best tag team in the world.
Yeah, and
they're one of the ones that I think, and again, it's one of those things where you're like, I don't want to get off on this big tangent and conversation about the actual modern product. At WWE and AEW, neither promotion knew how to use these guys.
Yeah, and I know you already got all this with Lorcan and Birch. And AEW did it too, but they put them in a bigger faction. But I think they work with MJF, and it works with them, as what I was telling you before, where sometimes I like friends in wrestling to be kind of opposite of each other.
Yeah,
they're opposite of each other. You know what I mean? And when I say, oh, it's great when two wrestlers you wouldn't think would be friends or partners or whatever, or friends and partners. The ultimate one of it is it might be friends in the history of professional wrestling. Like Arn Anderson and Ric Flair shouldn't be friends.
Yeah.
They're characters. They shouldn't be friends. And I know they did the storyline where they were cousins or whatever. Mm-hmm. But Arn Anderson shouldn't want to hang out with Ric Flair because he's like, woo, woo. He's all crazy and shit. And Arn's all about being all serious and shit. But he's like, that's my guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I know he's crazy and shit, but that's my dude. You know what I mean? And I think that's what MJF and FTR could do together. And why wouldn't you want those guys on your fucking roster?
No, for sure. They're going to be my second.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say they're one of, if not the best tag team in professional wrestling.
They're the best tag team in wrestling right now. Absolutely. Hands down. For a tag team, for what tag team wrestling in its purest form is, in meaning Midnight Express, Heart Foundation, fucking the Valiant Brothers, for what tag team wrestling is in its purest form, FTR is the best tag team in the world right now. And full disclosure, I don't watch a lot of Japanese wrestling. I just don't. But I don't have time in my life for it. There might be some tag team in Japan that Dave Meltzer
The
would
only
cream
team
over that.
I don't care about Dave Meltzer. I was just gonna say the team that like I might not compare them to, but might say, maybe they're better. Is Mark and Jay, but,
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like you don't get much better than that.
And my last tag team is going to be my first tag team champions. They are going to lose the belts, spoiler alert, to FTR, because I recruited these guys as a team. They're a good team, but I recruited them as my team, and they're going to be my first champs in the eventual storyline to feud with each other. And then I turn them into singles wrestlers. A bit of a cheat, but whatever. It's Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher. I love both of them, and I want to utilize them as singles wrestlers, but I will bring them in as a team. They'll be my first champs. Something will happen with FTR. FTR will get the belts, and then Thatcher and Ciampa can break up and feud because they're fantastic, whether a tag team or singles.
Yeah, and my only thing is I don't know who turns.
Probably Thatcher. And the only reason I say that is because your crowd is going to be more willing to cheer Ciampa, I think.
Yeah. And see, that's like I said, you haven't watched NXT yet, but that's the first thing they did on the fucking show this week. And not a turn. What I'm saying, like guess what they did the first thing. I don't want to spoil it for you.
That's all right.
The first thing they did on NXT was they had Tommaso Ciampa come out, and he had like some of these new, and he cut like this, like fired up babyface promo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so glad to be the champion again. And NXT 2.0 is going to be the best. And I'm in here with guys like Braun Breaker and the fat black guy. What's his name? Audio visual or whatever his name is. Like, I'm in here with this guy. Like to me, it's like Tommaso Ciampa shouldn't be the fired up baby face. It's like, yeah,
he
NXT
should be the
best.
He should be the
brooding guy. You know what I mean?
He should be the Steve Austin style babyface. Like, everybody's here and all the fans are cheering me, and I like the fans, but I'll break every one of your fucking necks because I don't give a shit.
And he didn't do that to any of those guys in the ring. Like, he should have looked at all of them and said, I have this now. And he shouldn't have said, like, I'm not even saying he needed to be a heel about it.
Mm-hmm.
But he should have been like, I have this now. And I expect each and every single one of you to do exactly what I did to get it. It'd be the fucking sickest, meanest son of a bitch in the ring that I was to get this away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. He was like patting him on the back and being like, I'm glad you guys are here. It's just, it didn't fucking work at all for me. He did one good thing. I shouldn't say he did. They had him say one good thing. And at first I thought I was like, oh, that's going to be cool. Because guess what they had him do? They had him, he didn't talk about how many times, like, like most guys are like Nick Aldis, like, I was a champion for 1,307 days or whatever, you know.
Right.
What he did was he was like, it's been 950, and it's a close number. I can't remember the exact number he said. He said it's been 957 days since I've been the champ.
Which means
that was cool.
Yeah,
like, he wasn't counting how long he had been the champ. He was counting how long it's been since I haven't been the champ.
Longing to be the champion.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's not marking the amount of days that he is the champ. He's marking the amount of days that he hasn't had it. I was like, that was cool. And then the fucking rails, it went off the rails after that. But Ciampa is super fucking talented. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but he
projects himself that way.
Yeah, you don't think about it when I'm sorry, I don't want to keep talking too much about modern stuff.
Well, I mean, it's a forbidden thing to say.
You're gonna say what
it shouldn't. He is the. You said it earlier. We always say modern day. Yes, absolutely.
Looking like Chris Benoit.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Benoit wasn't the biggest guy in the fucking business at all,
but he was a thick cut
badass
stick of fucking dynamite.
Yeah,
and brought it.
And if somebody like Triple H, which Triple H is a big motherfucker, okay, but if somebody like Triple H is like, Jesus Christ, you know, this fucking little guy, he's fucking crazy, you know, not crazy.
Well,
okay, you get what I'm saying.
Spade a spade, yes.
You get what I'm saying. It's like this dude, this salt is dangerous,
mm-hmm.
and even the big fucker should be like, this sawed off motherfucker is dangerous. And Benoit didn't need to cut the greatest, like, fired up baby face promo in the world, because that's not what he does
mm-hmm.
or did. Like, that's what, if it was my company that you're booking, I would do with him, and it's what they should do with him in NXT, and that's apparently not what they're doing with him, because he was like being like kind of buddy with Braun Breaker because they teamed up and shit. Like I said, I don't want to get too much off on a fucking modern product thing, but once you watch it, you'll probably see what I'm saying. I think it was they're mismanaging him at the start of his title reign now, and it's because Triple H isn't there, because he had a heart attack because he saw what they were doing with NXT.
That being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Aaron, I hope you enjoyed my roster. And thank you for joining us on the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
It's like Stephanie.
It's the big one.
It's the big one. It's the big one. I'm coming home, Stephanie.
And he saw Randy Savage.
And can
he saw Randy Savage. He saw Randy Savage in the lights going, Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
I never thought about Fred Sanford having a heart attack and it being Randy Savage.
Elizabeth.
That's not funny, but it's funny.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Weekend Wrestle podcast.
That's the greatest death in wrestling history.
Wacky. It was apropos.
Wacky, not greatest, but this insane human being had a heart attack in his Jeep Tracker, went across 4 lanes of traffic, hit a guy on a motorcycle, and then slammed him into a palm tree. How else would Randy Savage go out?
Dig it.
One of my all-time or diabetes. You can cut that out. But yeah. That's a good roster.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us this week on the We Can't Wrestle podcast, everybody. And the next time you hear us, we probably will have done the convention. So that'll be more than likely our next show, is all of our recording from the Heroes and Legends Wrestling show on October the 2nd. I'm excited. Aaron's excited. We're going to bring it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to happen. We'll see you next time around, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Check out WrestleNet Radio. Check out Reliving the Extreme. Those are the brands. That's what we're doing. Until next time, sayonara.
Yeah, bitches. Konnichiwa.